Well, the latest we've got is a full statement now from the Secret Service, and that has confirmed a number of the details we've been reporting on BBC News for the last couple of hours. They say there was a shooter who was on an elevated position outside the farm show ground where the rally was taking place. That tallies with what our eyewitnesses have been telling us. They say that the two people are dead. One is the shooter, one is someone who was inside the crowd, and two other people are now critically injured and presumably in hospital. President Trump has also said that he was hit by a bullet. He says it tore through the skin of the upper part of his right ear. And if you just think about that for a moment, that means it is inches, an inch away from going in his head. So that is how close the former president came this evening to getting a bullet in the head. So this is incredibly shocking developments, incredibly shocking news here on the ground. President Trump has also extended his condolences to those people who have been injured and died. He's also thanked law enforcement for their rapid action, and you can see from the video that they order him to the ground as soon as the shooting starts, and then they pile on top, which is what they're trained and paid to do, to put their bodies between him and the bullets. That's what they do. And then they took him away. We're hearing from his campaign, of course, that he's fine. His sons have been on social media as well, saying Donald Trump Jr. has spoken to his father, says he's fine. Eric Trump has talked on social media as well. I have to say to you that about half an hour ago, just on the perimeter here, there was an electronic billboard on the back of a truck that had been parked, and it had a picture of Donald Trump's face on it with a target, and it said in terms, Democrats assassinating Donald Trump, trying to assassinate Donald Trump. So that's a pretty shocking development, and it's an indication perhaps of what may be to come in terms of the divisions this may deepen in this country. There is a chance, of course, that this is this kind of thing that will make people stop and think about the political atmosphere and the dialogue in America, but there's a chance that it can make it a whole lot worse.
Well, it's been a charged atmosphere for many months and years, really, hasn't it, Gary? Of course, you covered the events of January 6th, and this is something that may have been bubbling under the surface for a long time. Just speaking of those kinds of tensions that you've been mentioning, I just want to flash back, though, because you were there outside the events. When you heard those shots, you spoke to people that were obviously inside. Can you just walk us through and kind of help us understand what those moments were like?
Well, we were standing just a few feet from where I am now, and we were talking to our colleagues on the BBC World Service, and suddenly we heard this volley of gunfire, and it was immediately obvious that that's what it was, that it was gunfire. It wasn't a car backfiring or a motorcycle or anything like that. And we got down on the ground as we had no idea where these bullets were going or where they were coming from or who was being shot at. There's no cover here. It's just like fields. There's nowhere to go, really. So we're flat on the dirt. And then people started streaming out of there. You heard screaming happening. And we started to speak to people as they came out, and we spoke to a number of people. Some were very emotional, some were very angry. One guy, in fact, here on BBC News tried to stop us telling you what was happening, telling the world what was happening, and we had to try and explain to him live on air that this is what we do. This is what we try and do. We try and explain the world to people in the best way we possibly can. We had another eyewitness who said that he had been just outside the perimeter, and he'd come down after a party with some friends to listen to the rally. They didn't have tickets or anything. And he'd seen a guy climbing onto this single-story building, which is to the right of the stage as Donald Trump was on it. It has a white roof, and he said he saw this guy climb onto this roof with a rifle and tried to point this out to the security services, Secret Service, the police. He said he was doing this for a couple of minutes or so. He wasn't absolutely sure about timings, but he thought this was happening about 5 or 7 minutes into the speech. And then a few minutes later, the shooting started. And in very graphic terms, he told us about how he'd seen the man on the roof with the rifle, how he'd seen him shot or neutralised, as the security service like to call it here. So it all happened incredibly quickly, and you can hear on that video, you can hear there are kind of two bursts of gunfire, in fact, and you know, there's clearly an initial burst and probably an exchange of fire there, and certainly another one of the eyewitnesses we spoke to, young teenage boy Colby, he was here with his dad. They own a farm just down the road, 2 miles down the road from here, and he said he'd seen the flare from the muzzles of the rifles of the Secret Service people on the roofs around when they'd taken the gunman down, and they had also seen a couple of people put on stretchers and taken away in ambulances as well. So incredibly shocking moments. That was their first rally. That's their first political rally. This teenage boy coming to his first political rally, and he gets this. And his father was shocked. And I have to tell you, this is Trump country in this part of Pennsylvania, Butler County, very firmly Trump country. People told us afterwards they support gun ownership, they support gun rights, but at least 2 or 3 of them said, we've got to think about what do we do about this.